I'm Mark. I'm an alcoholic. And I was really nervous about giving this speech tonight. This is the first time I'm telling my story in a situation like this, but this is the truth. When we were just now saying the Serenity Prayer, like I had a calming sense come over me, and it's just a lot of what I'm going to touch on tonight, but isn't this program awesome? I mean, God. What I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to share with you a timeline of my story from my plunge to my rock bottom to my climb back up to where I am now. And so I guess I'll just get started. It's said in the Big Book, I chair the Wednesday night Big Book study, and we recently just finished the stories in the back, and there was a story where the guy talked about how alcohol was just a symptom of his alcoholism. And that hits home for me because that's what it is for me. So I wrote that at the top of my page here. And when I was 2 years old, my parents got divorced. And my mom divorced my dad because my dad is a very abusive man, mostly verbally, but a little bit physically. And she couldn't take it anymore. And my dad took it very, very personally. Like, how dare her leave him? And my dad is a very vengeful man, and he, even to this day, he still hates my mom for leaving him. And that was, 42 years ago. My dad sought revenge on my mom by taking it out on me. And when I was a little kid, it wasn't so bad, but as I started to get older, Dad got really bad. And even to this day, he's still bad, and it still, to this day, cuts me to the bone. Like I said, it was mostly verbal, and he would always say things to me like, how stupid are you? Why can't you figure that out? Why, like when I got into sports in high school, he'd say, why aren't you as good as so-and-so on that team? And it was never anything positive. I can't remember my dad ever telling me, ever, good job. The most I can remember is him saying, you did a pretty good job at that, but you're still not as good as you should be. That's the best compliment I can ever remember. And like I said, I got a whole list of things he wrote, or he said to me. You're stupid, you're not good enough, you're fat, you're worthless, and stuff that just cut me to the bone, especially as a preteen and a teen. My mom, on the other hand, my mom is an absolute saint, and I am a mama's boy. She is very kind, loving, sweet, wonderful person. But my mom always felt responsible for how my dad treated me. So she was always doing the best she could, but I know that now, looking back on it, but she babied me big time. Like, her way of paying me back for my dad's abuse was just stuff, buying me stuff. When I was a young kid, it was candy. And then it turned into toys. And then when I got into high school and stuff and got into sports, it was expensive basketball shoes. And then later on, when I got my license, it was nice cars. It was always just stuff. And it worked. I got addicted to stuff. And can I get a Kleenex or something? Thank you. That's great. Even though Mom never had a lot of money, she would always work a couple jobs just to buy me that stuff. And what I'm trying to get at here is that at a young age, I learned real quick, because I was a victim of my dad's abuse, but I also learned how to be a victim and manipulate my mom, pour it on thick. The thicker I make it, the worse I make it, the more stuff she'd buy me. And it worked. It would always work until I saw Dad again. And it was always the same thing. And, every Sunday, especially as a kid, my dad had custody on weekends. and Mom would come pick me up, and then we'd cry together because of what happened. And as I got older, I learned how to really manipulate my mom with that. So now I'm gonna get into junior high and high school. I went to a very small junior high in Lincoln. I was a big fish in a small pond. I was popular. I was one of the best athletes. And I learned ego and pride. From junior high, I went into high school, and it was a Class A high school in Lincoln, and it was very, very big. And I took my ego and my pride and my cockiness into high school, where it got shot down really fast, because kids are mean. I started getting made fun of, stuff like that, and I learned how to isolate and back away. I was still really good at sports. I made the basketball team and the football team pretty easily, but because of my dad's abuse and my, making me unsure of myself, and because of getting made fun of and stuff, I quit. I learned how to quit, and I would manipulate my mom, and she would let me quit, and that took a toll on me because, like I said, I learned how to be a quitter. So anytime something got tough, I ran. So, with all that being said, yeah, I learned how to become the victim. I learned how to become a manipulator because of that. I learned how to get whatever I want out of playing the victim. I learned how to be a quitter, and I learned how to isolate. Still haven't taken my first drink yet. I found alcohol in my late teens. I did not like it at first. It was terrible. It was disgusting. I hated the hangover. I hated the dizziness, the loss of control. I absolutely hated it. But I found that drinking made me cool. And I could actually drink a lot. And, the drinking parties in high school and stuff like that, I could beat everybody. I could win those drinking games. Did I say drinking parties? Drinking games, you know what I meant. So yeah, I got good at it. My early 20s, I happened to stumble my way into a band. It was a country and rock band. I worked with the guy who was in the band. He got me in. I started out doing like roadie work, just setting up, tearing down kind of stuff, hauling equipment around. But I learned real quick that being part of that band, it was a very popular band in Lincoln, and it was just being part of something really cool. And it was like the first time that happened to me, just like a brotherhood. I absolutely loved it. Just like I said, being part of something, being recognized, as part of the band. Like I said, it was a really popular band. But one thing I also got good at was drinking and partying. In the band, we had a no drinking rule before or during. Isn't this neat? Anyway, before the band, we had a rule in the band before shows of no drinking before and during a show. But after the show, it was game on. And we drank hard. As time went by, I learned how to be the sound guy for the band, to run the sound equipment. It was again a chance deal. The band always had a couple different sound guys, and they were not real reliable guys. And one night, one of them didn't show up, and I was just kind of thrown to the wolves. It turns out I had a gift for doing that, and I learned a lot really fast, and I got really good at it. And again, I'm going to emphasize, I just loved that lifestyle. I loved the band life, being part of something really cool. We partied and drank every night after the show. The band got recognized, and we went on to do some bigger things, and we got invited by Sony Records to do a show in Nashville. And I don't know, they call it a showcase. It's basically a small show where the band performs in front of the record label execs. And anyway, I was super, super nervous. I had these 5 guys on stage that I had control of, and I could make or break them with what I did. And very, very nervous. So I remember I ordered 3 double shots of Crown and just pounded them down one after the other. And that really calmed my nerves. The band performed great. I pulled off my end of the deal very well. Everything worked. And what I found right then and there at that moment is I found a magic potion that cures my nerves and helps me to get past my nerves and just do what I got to do. And it was awesome. And I have written here, I had arrived, like Bill says in the book. So long story short on the band thing, I'm not going to get into all that, but anyway, after about 12 years, the band broke up. And it was a hard breakup. It was bad blood. And I took it very, very hard. I was absolutely devastated because I thought I had found what I was going to do for the rest of my life. And I was very mad. I was very depressed. It was a bad deal. But I had that magic potion that I could turn to, that alcohol. And I turned to it. And I loved it. And it worked. Again, it worked. Towards the end of my band days, I met the woman who would become my wife, and then my ex-wife. We met at a show. She was beautiful, young, fun, full of love, full of life. She fell for a guy who she thought was confident, stud, part of a cool band, very, popular. Everything she thought I wasn't. I was well into my way to my alcoholism. I didn't know it yet, but yeah. Like I have written here, if she only knew the chaos ahead of her. If I only knew the chaos ahead of her. I didn't know where this was going. We had a great marriage in the beginning. We did everything together. We truly loved each other. We had a lot of fun. Now comes to my second DUI. I didn't talk about my first DUI, but maybe sometime I will. But my second DUI, this was about, 8 years into my marriage, about 5 years after the band broke up. I was in a car wreck where I was injured really bad. It was a one car wreck. I hit the guardrail on the interstate, and I had severe whiplash. I had a skull fracture 2 millimeters from where my spine connects to my skull. I was in a neck cast for months. I was in a neck brace for months after that. But anyway, my wife was great during all that. She was there for me like no other, and she took care of me. And it brought us closer together than ever. It was wonderful. She was just, like I said, she was there for me through the DUI, through the court stuff, through the medical stuff. And to be honest with you, I didn't know it at the time, but it's like I had found a new mother, someone that's going to baby me and take care of me and all that. Because of the DUI and all the problems I had, I quit drinking for 4 years. I did it white-knuckled. I didn't have the program. I was forced to go to AA meetings then through my sentencing. But I was one of those guys that when it came to my turn, I'd say I'm Mark and I'm going to pass. I refused to say I'm an alcoholic. I blamed alcohol. It wasn't my fault. It was alcohol's fault. But because of that quitting for 4 years, life got better. It just did. I've talked to people about it before, and what I've come to realize is that some of the promises in the book on 83 and 84 were starting to come true without even really knowing it. But life just got better, even though I wasn't working a program. But then as life went on, my alcoholic mind got to me, and relapse was inevitable. Like I said, my alcoholic mind got to me. I decided I didn't have a problem. If I could quit for 4 years, I obviously don't have a problem, because, whatever. So I decided I could handle it again. I started back up. The first night I had 2 drinks. Everything was great. Obviously don't have a problem. Second night I had 3 drinks. Again, I can handle this, no problem. The third night I had like 40 drinks. And I was back to the races, right where I left off. Drinking hard, partying hard, driving fast while drunk. I used to live in a small town outside of York, and I would drink in Lincoln. It was about an hour drive, so I would drink on the way to the bar, so I'd make sure I was drunk when I got there, because that makes sense, right? And then get really shit-faced and drive home. Well, I stretched that out for about 2 years without getting caught, and finally I got caught for my 3rd DUI. The cop found me driving down the shoulder in the ditch. He didn't like that. Sent me, I failed the sobriety test right away. Sent me straight to jail. And I'm getting ahead of myself here. I said I stretched that out for 2 years. Well, in those 2 years, my marriage started slipping away, and I didn't even know it. Looking back now, I'm drinking again. And just letting life get away from me. I said here before, when I was in those 4 years sober, life was getting good. Well, now life's getting bad. I'm drinking like crazy every day, almost every day. And I just didn't care anymore, because I also forgot to mention that my wife made a lot of money. So I didn't have to work. So I just drank, went to the bar, slept. I didn't do much. Well, as shocking as this is going to sound, she got tired of taking care of me. And so back to my 3rd DUI here. She bailed me out that night, and she was pissed. And, I had time that night. The jail was full, so they sat me in the library, just a small room full of books where they could lock the door. And I just sat there for about an hour and thought about how I just had really screwed things up, and how it got this bad, how I let it get this bad again. And right then and there, I knew I was at my rock bottom. She picked me up that night. We drove home. She just chewed my ass. And she was going to leave. She had had enough. So my wife was leaving me. I didn't have a job. I didn't have money. Didn't have a place to go. And now I'm looking at 3rd offense DUI, so good chance of prison time. I was scared and alone. Really scared and alone. I remember that night, I don't know if it was that night or the next morning, I don't know. I was home alone. It must have been the next day. I was home alone. She went to work. And I remember I just collapsed. I hit the floor crying and praying. And I prayed and prayed and prayed and cried and cried and cried. And scared to death. God, just shaking. I didn't know what I was going to do. It may not sound that bad, but to me, my caretaker was going to leave me, and I had nowhere to go. I didn't have a job because she made the money, and I didn't have a responsibility. I was a 38-year-old child, and I know though that while I was on the ground praying and crying, I did have a calming sense come over me, and it's like for that brief moment, I felt like I don't know what's going to happen here, but everything's going to be okay. And then, shortly after that, through the help of some people like the pastor of the church I was going to and the doctor I went to, I got into treatment. And the only reason I went to treatment was to save my marriage. This was probably about a week, 5 days after that night, I got into treatment. And my wife agreed to stay for a little while, at least till I got through treatment and just see how things went. And I absolutely loved the treatment. I know some of you guys that are in treatment now probably are shaking your head, but I loved it because I was safe there. I was secure there. It was a place for me to go. The real world couldn't get to me. I loved every second of it. While I was in treatment, they forced me to go back to AA. I had to go to 2 meetings a week. And I remember thinking to myself, you're probably still not an alcoholic. I mean, you probably have a little bit of a problem that you need to do something about, but you're not one of those crazy people. But I know at that first AA meeting I went to, I was debating if I was going to say it or not. I'm probably, again, I didn't think I was an alcoholic yet, even though I got myself into all kinds of trouble. But when it came around to me, I did say it. I said, I'm Mark and I'm an alcoholic. And everybody said, hi, Mark. And it was just like, again, that calming feeling come over me. It's like, it was a great feeling. I remember listening as it went around the table. This is my third go around now in AA. And I told myself that I'm just going to, you're probably not an alcoholic, but you just listen, take everything in. Like I said, I love treatment. I took that all in. Now I'm at AA for the first time, and I'm doing the same thing. I'm just listening. I'm not closing my mind to it. And the first guy that spoke, it's like, oh, yeah, I do that. I can relate to that. The next guy that spoke, oh, yeah, I see that. I did that too. The next lady that spoke, finally it hit me. Son of a bitch, you're an alcoholic. And, I didn't burst into flames. It wasn't going to kill me. It was okay. And I accepted it right then and there. And from that moment, I just, like I said, I accepted the fact that I was an alcoholic. But I do remember at the end of treatment, like the last week, it hit me. Oh, crap. What am I going to do now? The real world's out there, and they're going to release me here pretty quick. And what am I going to do? So I talked to my counselor about it. His name was Rod. And Rod told me to fill that void of treatment with AA. So I did. I went back home to the York area. And then my life after treatment, I got into AA. I went to three meetings a week because that's what they had there. I loved it. AA did fill that void that treatment was for me in the beginning. I knew that it was time for me to start taking some responsibility. So I didn't mention this in the beginning, but my dad has been a farmer all his life. And I was raised on the farm, and I knew that life. And after talking to my dad for a while, we kind of worked out our differences, got on the same page, and I decided to go back to the farm and work for him. And life started getting better. I was sober. I was working. I was being an adult. It was still really hard with my dad. He's an old man. He's not going to change. And I knew that I was going to have to change. And I did. I just did. Through the help of this program and whatnot. So anyway, life was going good. And then 2 years into my sobriety, my wife dropped a bomb on me and she wanted a divorce. And again, I was back to devastation. It was horrible. I mean, my caretaker was going to leave. Even though I'm working again, things aren't. I'm still early in my sobriety. And it was like a rock bottom all over again. And fear, oh my God, I had fear. I was so scared. But we still lived in that small town. right outside of York, and I drove back to this area every day to the farm for 2 years. And so the only thing I could do at this point, it just so happened to work out that the house I lived in as a kid, where I was born, was open. Dad was renting it out. He lived in a different place now. And so I did the only thing I could, and I moved into my old farmhouse. And like I said, I was so scared. Now I really am alone because there's nobody around. I'm on the farm. And I don't know, it was about a week. I remember it was a Thursday night, and it was bad. I was all in my head. I hadn't gotten back into AA yet because I didn't know any programs here in this area. And I was in really bad shape. And I knew I was close to relapse. I hadn't drank yet, but I knew I was close. And I wanted to. I wanted to go out. I wanted to just end it all. I was extremely suicidal. So I got on the AA website and I found this place, 303 Madison, this place. And it was already too late that night to get to a meeting, so I came to the one Friday night. And it was Ray Bierman chaired the meeting. There was a few Link guys, and there was Kim and Larry. That was the first meeting I walked into. And I thought to myself, what in the hell? Kim's the first guy I see, and I thought, what? And then I heard him speak, and it's like, oh my God, this guy knows his stuff. And so anyway, I started coming to meetings here at 303 a lot, and it worked. Like I said, life started getting better again. I did not take a drink during that time period. I did not relapse that way, but mentally I did. Emotionally I did. I mean, if that counted towards relapse, I'd be, I'd have been starting over at day one there. But looking back on it now, I mean, God was looking out for me because I did have those 2 years under my belt, and even though it was really hard and it was like another rock bottom again, I had that strength to not take that drink. And so yeah, I started going back to lots of meetings. Because nighttime was the worst. God, I hated night. I could work all day, keep my hands busy, keep it somewhat off my mind, keep that fear out of my mind. But then at nighttime, sitting there in front of that stupid TV, God, that just sucks. So the 8 o'clock meetings became my home away from home. I came to a lot of meetings every night, and I still do. I go to 4 or 5 meetings a week, and I love it. Life started getting better. Here at 303, I don't know, a couple months in, I met Glenn. Glenn quickly became my sponsor. Glenn needs no introduction. Everybody knows Glenn. Wave, Glenn. So yeah, now I got a great sponsor. We're working the steps. Life's getting better. I met Ryan. Wave, Ryan. Who now is, like he said when he was up here, we've become best friends, and it's a real friendship. I mean, we are best friends, and I know it sounds like teenager stuff, but it makes me smile. I like to admit it. Life started getting better. I met my tribe. I'm going to tell a quick story about my tribe. One of my favorite movies is Young Guns. And Billy the Kid said in there, you get yourself a few good pals, and then you got a tribe. So I use that word tribe, and I use that word pals, and I don't use them lightly. I met my tribe. They're all here tonight. Jeff, Luke, Jackie, Stacy. Love you guys. Like I said, real friends. Life's getting better. Little by little, life kept getting better. I didn't know it yet, but life kept getting better. I'm working this program. I'm here, like I said, 4 or 5 nights a week. I got my sponsor. I got my best buddy. I got my tribe. About 3 years into my sobriety now, Glenn takes me to the Pierce meeting. And that quickly became my favorite meeting. I love the Pierce meeting. I call it my home group now. At the Pierce meeting, one night, the topic of the night was about page 415 and acceptance. And this is the first time I'm hearing this. And I was absolutely blown away. I was 3 years into my sobriety, and I was blown away by that. An old timer, Lyle, I don't know if you guys know him, but he's got the long beard thing, and Lyle and Donna. Anyway. Yeah, and it was just, as the topic went around the room, I'm reading this myself over and over again, because this is the first time I'm hearing it. And I'm blown away at, acceptance is the answer to all my problems today. And then nothing happens in God's world by mistake. I remember driving home that night, and it's like everything came to that point right then and there. And I realized that everything I'd gone through up to this point, my hard childhood with my dad, getting made fun of in school, getting babied by my mom, my band-aids, my marriage, good and bad, my divorce, going back to the farm, dealing with my dad again, all of it, I all of a sudden realized all of it happened for a reason. And it's like, I don't know, I can't explain it. It was just this awesome moment when I knew that I was right where I was supposed to be, right then and there. And I realized I was truly happy. And I didn't know it. I mean, it's just this, I worked the shit out of this program. I worked hard at getting my life in order, and I didn't realize it, but God was taking care of me. Just about done. So, how are we doing on time?
6 o'clock. You got plenty of time. Go as long as you need.
Okay. Well, settle in then. So now where I am, I mean, that kind of brings me to the conclusion of this speech, where I am today, right now. Today I am a strong man. I've never been a strong man before. I've always had to have someone take care of me. I don't need someone to take care of me anymore. I'm a confident man. I'm a gentle man. I'm a good man. And I'm a centered man. And no one's ever going to knock me off that center. Like I said, I'm a confident man. And it's all because of this program. I learned how to live life again. I learned how to be me. And I'm happy with me. I live Alcoholics Anonymous. I do. I've made it my life. I dove in. Had the first 2 years, and my wife was still taking care of me. I was going to those meetings in New York, and I kind of look back on that, and everything was fine because she was still taking care of me. So I just kind of see myself as hanging around the program. I was getting some tools and stuff, but then when I got here, back home to this area, and I didn't have anybody to take care of me, I knew I had to take care of me. I had to dive into this program head first and submerge myself. And that's what I did. And, I live Alcoholics Anonymous. I get into service work. I chair meetings. I mentioned that I chair the Wednesday night meeting. I've talked to some people about possibly chairing other meetings coming up. I got into sponsor work. I took on 2 new sponsees this week, and they're here tonight. Last week, I guess that was. And, when I first got into sponsorship, I was scared because, I think you all know what I'm talking about with that, but I sponsored these guys the exact same way Glenn sponsors me. In my mind, I have the best sponsor in the world, so why not pass it forward? And, God put me in places where I am now. God put me in places I never dreamed possible. 5 years ago, when I was at my rock bottom, when I got that third DUI, I never would have dreamed I'd be here right now giving this talk. I never would have dreamed the happiness I feel today. I never would have dreamed I'd be back on my family farm, being an adult with a good career. God put me there, places I never could have put myself. Myself, my will, my way put me at rock bottom. God put me here. Like I said, I'm back on the farm. I work with my dad every day. He's still the same way, but today I don't have to drink over it. Today I can handle it. Not always. I know Glenn and Ryan and the tribe get phone calls a lot, but I'm not drinking. And I'm going to close with this. Today I'm a very grateful alcoholic. I'm grateful for what God has given me. I'm grateful for the man I have become. I'm grateful for this program. I'm grateful for you people. I'm grateful for my sponsor. I'm grateful for my tribe. I'm grateful for my sponsees. I'm grateful for Pierce. And I'm grateful for 303. And with all of that being said, from the bottom of my heart, thank you.